century, the spot on which St. Denis Hall stands has been the site for school, sports, and social activities. In 1880, the Assumption College baseball team played here, and by the turn of the century, soccer, rugby, handball, and shinny or hockey were conducted on this spot. In 1908, basketball was initiated at Assumption, but games were played on the adjacent covered handball courts. A writer in the Assumption Review of 1908 described basketball as a combination of football, rugby, handball, and wrestling, with the only rule being you can only run 3 seconds before passing or shooting the ball. As a prophetic student stated about this time, this college could have a good future in basketball. In 1915, the original St. Denis Hall was built, and it was dedicated to Archbishop Dennis O'Connor, founder and first president of the college. The original facility, the north half of the current gym, was 60 feet by 106 feet, with a 10-foot running track 10 feet off the floor. College sports in the 20s and 30s were under the direction of Coach Father W.P. McGee. In 1928, his Assumption Purple Raiders won the Provincial and Dominion Championships. One of the top athletes of this era was Lee Higgins, who in 1930 was captain of the football, basketball, and baseball teams. The 1930s were the years of the famous fighting freshmen, Bill Rogan, Toots Moretzky, Don DeJarle, Glenn Sherman, and Stanley Red Nana. Assumption teams of the 30s were referred to as the point-a-minute teams, mainly through the efforts of Bill Rogan, Assumption's first 1,000-point competitor. Canada's Olympic silver medalist basketball team of 1938, the Ford V8s, were mainly W.P. McGee protégés. Hard times fell upon Assumption College in 1940, and Reverend J.M. Hussey points out the school was going to drop basketball until an alumnus, Red Nana, offered to volunteer as coach of the College Purple Raiders. This started a 13-year career, which led to the establishment of Red Nana as Mr. Basketball in Canada and the Assumption Purple Raiders as an international power. Red Nana's version of the Fighting Freshmen, Freddie Thomas, Tommy O'Hara, Bill Coleman, Bill Colthart, Ado Rorai, and Gino Sovereign, Assumption's second 1,000-point scorer, consistently defeated university basketball powers in both the United States and Canada. On one trip through New York State and Ontario, Assumption defeated Canisius, Niagara, and the University of Toronto on 3 consecutive nights. Back home, the Harlem Globetrotters were defeated 2 years in a row here in Windsor. Reds teams were perennial contenders for provincial and Dominion honors. The chief scorer in this era was Freddie Thomas, who scored over 2,000 points during his 4-year career. His number, 22, was retired as a tribute to his achievements. In 1949, St. Denis Hall was expanded to its current size, and it was frequently referred to as the gymnasium Freddie Thomas built. Early in the 50s, thanks to the efforts of Reverend J.M. Hussey and Frank DeMarco, Assumption College entered the Ontario-Quebec Athletic Association, and in 1953, Red Nana closed out his career as coach with an OQAA championship, which Assumption shared with the University of Western Ontario. Hank Biasetti continued the tradition as the Assumption College Purple Raiders won a co-championship with Queen's University in 1956, mainly through the efforts of Dick McKenzie, who scored an amazing 500 points in 1956 and had over 1,000 points during his college career. In 1959, Gene Rizak, another 1,000-point performer, Jerry Kotwas, and Leo Innocenti led Assumption University of Windsor Lancers to their first undisputed OQAA championship. The 1950s was a period of expansion as Assumption College became co-educational and graduated to Assumption University of Windsor. This was a period of expansion of both intramural and intercollegiate activities for both men and women. St. Denis Hall was filled with activity in a variety of sports: archery, badminton, judo, fencing, golf, swimming, tennis, track and field, volleyball, wrestling, and water polo. St. Denis Hall has over the years provided for high school events, WSSA, SAWASA, and OFSA championships, as well as high school invitationals in basketball, volleyball, and wrestling. Junior and senior amateur teams have also found a home in St. Denis Hall. However, St. Denis Hall was not just for sports. Registration, examinations, and convocations have honored statesmen and business leaders, artists, scientists, educators, and authors. The Christian Culture Series has brought other outstanding individuals and groups to St. Denis Hall. Royalty has visited, and through the years, the Students' Administrative Council has sponsored dances with big-name bands, presented speakers like Ralph Nader, and entertainers like Sammy Davis Jr. 3 academic programs originated in St. Denis Hall: drama, fine arts, and physical and health education, or human kinetics. In the 1960s, St. Denis Hall was the site of the first ever national Canadian Intercollegiate Athletic Union Basketball Championships. In 1963, Assumption closed out its rich tradition, winning the Canadian Intercollegiate Athletic Union National Championship, and in 1964, the University of Windsor Lancers initiated a promising new era by winning the second annual CIAU Championship. During the 7-year period, 1962 to 1969, Bob Samaras and Eddie Chitterow introduced Blitz basketball to Canada, and the University of Windsor won 6 of 7 league titles and 5 of 7 national championships. During the centennial year at the Intercollegiate Olympiad, the University of Windsor Lancers won a national championship, and Sis Thompson's Lancerette volleyball team also competed for national honors. Eddie Chitterow's team closed out the 60s with an OQAA title and a CIAU national championship. 1970 opened the era of Paul Thomas and Nick Grabowski. In a particularly noteworthy achievement, the final championship of the Ontario-Quebec Athletic Association was played in St. Denis Hall, and in a storybook finish, won by the Windsor Lancers. League titles followed in 72, 73, and 79. Other championships and other sports, social, and cultural events have filled St. Denis Hall through the decades of the 70s and the 80s. Soon it will be time to move on to a new home and a new era. The future is uncertain but promising. What is certain is that St. Denis Hall has left its mark as one of the great school, sport, and social facilities of Canada.